I'm going to start with the question that's last on the list that was given to us, a miscellaneous question, and I'd love for each of you to answer it. Could you please tell us about your first internship?
Well, as a senior member of this panel, my first internship was while I was in college, and it was at a design firm. And what I did was I drew everybody's comps. So, and then, and I learned how to do mechanicals. I mean, this is a long time ago. So my journey into advertising was actually fairly circuitous. I started in design, and that was my first internship. I got hired by that agency and worked very hard to get out of it. And that's my first experience. Oh, you have one.
Hi. My first internship was actually in a law firm. And I worked for 3 really crazy lawyers on Nassau Street. And they handled every private criminal case there could possibly be back in the day. And thank you for taking me all the way back there, Betsy. I knew that I did not want to be in law. I knew that I wanted to be around creative people, and then I also found my way out of that and into advertising.
My first internship was back in Brazil, which is where I'm from. It was a super, super small agency, I think like 10 people. And the interesting part of that was that I got to kind of be a part of the different parts of the process. So like, I didn't really know what I was getting myself into at the time. I was still in college, and I knew I liked the creative side, but it was kind of like a place that I got to see like the production and like the media, which in Brazil, like the media is still like part of the agency, and just being involved on every single thing, and like being one of the 3 or 4 creatives at that small agency, I also got to work on every single project, which was interesting. Obviously, a lot of the senior team's ideas were going through and not mine, but I was still getting a chance to, help and pitch in stuff. So was, interesting.
My creative department internship was also very small, but not at a small agency. I was at Crispin in Miami when Alex was there his last year. Boguski, which was incredible, but there were 2 creative interns, me and one other guy, my partner, and it was the same kind of thing. We got to touch all the work, very involved in the process from start to finish, and we actually got hired halfway through to work for Chuck Porter, who's one of the other founders of the agency, as his personal team, which was insane and isn't really like a real thing, but it was a crazy internship experience because we got to travel a lot, which a lot of interns really don't get to do, and we got to see the nitty-gritty of what a lot of other departments go through because that agency was so heavy: production, account, travel, all these other departments except for creative. So that was very eye-opening and important to learn about other departments and how hard they work so that later down the road you realize everything that they do for you.
That's great. And I think when you guys are all looking for internships, it is really important to try and find one where you will be doing the nitty-gritty. I think that most of the agencies in New York have really great internship programs if they do have one, but make sure that you won't be just getting coffee. If you have to run out and get coffee once in a while, as long as they always say, get one for yourself, then that's okay, but you really want to be doing work or be exposed to work, be exposed to the kinds of creatives that you want to work with. I get it that you can't all be completely choosy and wait for that one internship that only has, one intern in their agency. Not everybody can do that, but do research them a little bit so that you can be hands-on, because I think everyone benefits from that. I think the panelists have said they benefited from it, even if you found out what you didn't want to do. And I want to go to Emily E. for this next question, as the director of the internship program at Ogilvy.
Yeah.
Can you speak a little bit to the opportunities for students who are based out of the States to come and get an internship? I know that a lot of the work you do there also has to do with diversity and inclusion. So that question, I think, is coming from some of the international students who would love to get an internship. Is it possible?
Out of state, very easy. International, as all of you know, right now it is a little bit difficult, but that does not mean that there are not ways to find the right opportunity for you. My internship program is really solidly based on diversity, inclusion, talent, you know. It is a long-term internship program, and I've built in incentives to increase pay if we can't find a position, a staff position for you, because our holding companies will, you know, change what the rules are and how we can bring people on. So right now, I have 12 Miami Ad School who will be coming in, and then I think currently I have maybe about 10, and now I'm looking for another 10, okay? I look for, I've just brought in 3 brand new copywriters. I'm very happy about, I'm very excited about them. Some of them have already been in the business for about a year and are changing direction. So like maybe they've started in health, you know, health world, and now they want to work in a company like Ogilvy. They want to change directions. And so my internship programs, I don't care where you're from, I don't care what your race is, I don't care what your sexual orientation is. I want you to be able to do the work, and I want you to be able to fit in my culture, in the culture of Ogilvy. And I have a fantastic internship team right now. I have wonderful, talented young people who are willing to grow. Yeah, I do. Some of them are right here in this room. What I will say is, understand this. You may have gone to portfolio school. You may have spent hundreds of thousands of dollars, I'm so sorry, getting a degree. I'm so sorry, babies, I really am. You've spent a lot of money to learn our business, right? If you go into an internship, that's fantastic. You need that internship. That's going to help you grow. You are not fully formed, all right? You are creatives, you are art directors, copywriters, designers. You are who you are, but there is room to grow in the internship program. Be happy to be an intern, because then that means when you screw up, well, it's the intern. We're going to teach him better, okay?
Yes, and is your internship program, do you have a summer internship program as well as a year-long internship program?
I take them all year long.
You do, okay.
So I do take summer, so I'll have some rising seniors, like college rising seniors, and then I have to be clear that they're going to leave me in August, so I have to replace them, you know, because I am very conscious of what is going on in the company and the company needs.
Okay, and if you have 10 interns that you're looking for, I think you're going to be busy at the drinks afterwards. So, yes. And you've actually already answered this question, so I'd like to ask each of the panelists, what are your views on gender and racial inclusion in this field? I'm guessing we're all for it, so if you could expand on that a little bit more, that'd be great.
I am for it. So I guess my position at this point is that it's hard, but if you don't demand it in our position, so as a as a creative director and I'm running a group, if I don't say to my recruiter, it must be a diverse candidate, it won't happen. So while we tend to put this onus on HR to find the diverse candidates and bring the diverse candidates forward, I actually think it's very much on the creative leaders and that's where the deficit is. I gotta tell you, and we're doing the work, right? So we're doing the work that must reach a fast approaching minority-led culture, right? So if we don't demand it, and it is hard, and leave that space open until you fill it with a diverse candidate, then it won't get done. That's my position.
Yeah, I think we have to put on like, you know, creative directors, ECDs, the leadership positions at the agencies to take ownership of that and like make a point to hire a diverse group of people. I think it's sometimes we just kind of like look for the best book and you know who has the best work, but I think it's not enough to just do that anymore. I think you have to look at like who you're hiring, making sure that you know the environment around you reflects the world around you and the people that are buying the things that we're selling and who we're talking to. So I think it's just crazy that, that for us to not make that choice and that make a point to hire people that will be, that will make our group diverse. And we've been trying to do a lot of that at BBDO. We also have like a diversity and inclusion group that's dedicated for that, and like a program, and we're trying to do more. And I know it's not moving as fast as it has to, but I think I'm very happy that this is part of the conversation of every single panel and like talk or just like anything in the industry now, because instead of being discouraged and like reminding people of that's an issue, I think it's actually the right moment for people to be encouraged by it instead. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I'm very lucky at McCann. I work on an insanely diverse team, and that's been really encouraging for me. But it's so important, to your point, that you should be hiring people who are purchasers of every type. I think that we've had this conversation for a long time around women, especially in the past decade, of women are such strong purchasers that they need to be included in the teams that are making the work, because women are buying a lot of products. And I think that the same can be said for every race. We're all consumers at the end of the day, and I think that a client wants people on their team who know how to reach different consumers. So from a business standpoint even, it's smart. And I think that it's not that hard to convince people who are running a business. It's just about being vocal and convincing your leaders that this is an important thing. Here's why it's important for so many reasons, but I'm encouraged as well by what McCann is doing, and there's a long way to go, but I think we're making strides, which is one step forward every day.
Definitely, thank you.
Can I just add something to that? Very often I hear we're looking for the best books, right? And so what I will say, maybe it is because I am an African-American woman and I have an African-American child, that I know how to look at brown people, okay? And I know where to find you. And I would say that we have to ask the industry to be more aware of their biases, okay? Because if you broaden your scope of recruiting, where you are finding these people, right, you're going to find a huge, a really eclectic, diverse, dynamic group of people from every background. But if you are only looking at the people that you know, you've got to ask yourself, when was the last time you brought a black person into your house? Are they your friends? Are they people that you know? So for me, my group they are very diverse, but they come from everywhere. And I just don't stick to recruiting from the same locations that everybody else is, because they know that those are the best books. I think that we have to think about taking people, looking at them, finding what they do really, really well, and then build on that, right? And that's black, white, or whatever. I'm very, very, I could go on, girl. I really can.
I was not going to cut you off. Yes, well, as a recruiter, I 100% agree with you. And for everyone in the audience, there are a lot of resources for you as well in terms of kind of finding out where those diversity job boards are. There are organizations which really focus on helping you. You probably know about some of them already, but you can go to AAF and look it up. You can go to MAP and look it up. There are many different organizations which are helping the industry become more diverse, helping recruiters like me have access to more diverse candidates. So thank you for that. The next question then that came from the audience is, what are the qualities of an amazing intern, one who you would want to return? And the second question kind of goes along with it, so we can kind of answer it at the same time. What do you look for in applicants applying for your internships and entry-level jobs? So why don't we do maybe, go ahead. Why don't you go ahead? Bianca.
I think for me as a creative, I look for the craft. I'm not talking about the craft like design craft or like being an art director background. I think I look for people that like do want to spend that time looking for either like improving what the thing they're making to look better or to sound better, and like just writing the lines and writing again and like trying to write the scripts and craft the scenarios. I miss that. I feel like nowadays people like think it's just enough to have like a cool idea, like this crazy idea, like this stunt or like this app, or it's so cool, but then like their portfolio is like full of that stuff, but then when they need to sit and think about like a 360 campaign or like a big platform idea, forget about execution, it's like blank. It's like, I don't know, but there's a cool thing we could do with like, and it's not enough anymore, or not anymore. I don't think it's enough. So I try to see the essence of like what type of creative that person is. Like, is there like the craft and the writing, the design skills, and just see like how willing they are to get there. I'm not looking for it to be perfect from the beginning, but I'm looking for people that want to spend more time getting to that point, as opposed to think it's enough to have a cool idea, to have some like crazy thing that's like, gonna get some, I don't know, some like headlines.
Yeah, I think that those two questions struck me as really, really similar, that there's only one difference that I would say. For junior creatives, I think my motto always was work hard, be nice, and have talent. And I think that if you do those three things, then you're bound to succeed. Some people are really, really hard workers and they're really, really talented, but they're not nice people that you want to be around, so you just don't want to work with them. Or they're really, really nice and they're really, really talented, but they don't want to put in the work. That's just as difficult. I think that the only thing that I would say when looking at intern or candidates is what makes you unique. To your point, Emily, like we all come from something different, and I think it's really interesting sometimes to hire like a journalism major as a copywriter, or an artist, a graphic artist as an art director, because you get something different, you get something new, and those people are hungry in a different way. They're not used to the same thing that a lot of us have been programmed into that went to portfolio school. They have a fresh take that you really can't get unless you hire somebody like that. I think that that's something that I always look for, and maybe it's not your background, maybe it's just something unique about who you are, and you only really know that by talking to somebody and looking at their work. But you get a sense of this person has something unique that they're gonna bring to this role. But I do think that, to Bianca's point, hard work and really being dedicated to the craft is something that you don't see a lot. You think you would see it everywhere, but you really want somebody who's gonna stay and really, really work and try to make it perfect. And it's not gonna be perfect, but at least they're gonna try to do it. That makes such a huge difference.
Today we had one of my interns, she's a copywriter. I asked her how things were going, and she said, well, I'm writing for this creative director, and he's looking at my work and he's checking it and he's throwing it out and telling me to do it over again. And I write more and he looks at it and he throws it out and he tells me to do it over again. And I said, that's so amazing. How fantastic. You are getting a lesson on writing, and she's only gonna be with me for a short period of time, but I want her to come back, because she's willing to put herself in a position where she is uncomfortable to learn. I said before, you are not fully formed. That's wonderful. Give yourself the opportunity to grow. I like to bring people back who have shown me that they're willing to learn. I gave an assignment to make gifts to some of my art directors, and they knocked it out of the park, and I brought them back, okay? It's not just what you've learned in school, because guess what? You're not learning everything in school. I'm sorry. I don't care what portfolio school it is, and I don't care who your teacher is. There are things that you're going to learn that are on the job that you won't be able to learn anyplace else. And if you are willing to open yourself up to the fact that, yes, you paid all that money, and yes, you've spent all those years, but now you're going to learn more, that's the kind of person I want. I also want somebody, like I said, I'm so protective of my agency culture, of the culture within our creative department. I've got a fantastic group of people. You have to be fantastic too. You have to bring something that's interesting. I like to know about who you are when you are not at work, because it's gonna seep through anyway. Do you sing? Do you dance? Are you a musician? Do you paint? Do you sculpt? Those things will seep out into your work, and that makes you very interesting, and that makes it easier for me to advocate for you, because everybody wants that extra stuff. Craft, absolutely, but you're going to build on your craft, and you need to want to build on your craft. Craft is very important, and I have to have a whole discussion about that with my team, about how we're going to improve that even more. But those are the things. I look at Instagram pages, y'all. Oh, yeah. That's right. I'll check you out. That's right. I will look at your Instagram page, your Facebook page. I will stalk you. I want to see your secret life. Okay? I do.
I got 2 points. One is very similar. Do you guys know what a weeble is? A weeble? Like a weeble, you can knock them over, but they don't fall down. They always bounce back up. Okay, so the thing that you gotta know is that you might have great ideas the first time, but there's gonna be a second time, and a third time, and a fourth time, and a fifth time, and the measure of a great creative is not what you bring the first time. It's what you bring the 10th time that's better than the first time. And that leads me to my second point. I had a mentor once that pulled me into a room and he goes, this is not a good story about me, but I've turned around. And he pulled me into a room and he said, Megan, there are 2 types of people, energy givers and energy takers. You're an energy taker. You're walking into a room and you're sucking the life out of it with your negativity. What? I'm like the most positive person. No, I wasn't. I was filled with angst, you know. I was filled with that, like, I must do better. And all you motherfuckers are wrong for not liking my work. And that was a pivotal moment for me, because it is something that I evaluate people on, and if I see it going wrong, I will give them this talk. Because you want to go into every room to give. That's a huge, huge asset to any team. That's it.
Great. Yeah, thank you. I like your energy. Yes, I like your energy too. And you know, in terms of kind of coming back again, go to every portfolio review that you can possibly go to. I'm sure your schools have them. The One Club has an amazing portfolio review in May, and they have an amazing diversity career fair in the fall and spring too, and an amazing diversity career fair in the fall during advertising week called Here Are All the Black People. So take advantage of every time you can get somebody to look at your work, and it doesn't mean you have to change anything actually, but hopefully there will be things that you get out of it. As you're talking to people, you're showing it to different creative directors, you're showing it to different recruiters, and just listen to their feedback and decide, you know, what you really feel is right, and then you can keep improving. And don't think that once you graduate from school, your work is, your portfolio is done. It's just never done. And so getting used to being in a creative department I mean, school helps obviously, but going to all these different professional portfolio reviews will help a lot too. So let's talk about the books. Really good questions here. What is the minimum amount of projects and some of the pieces that should be included in your book to show off your skills? And what catches your eye the most in a portfolio? So why don't we have you guys, you two down there, you want to answer that one? And then I'll have you guys answer the next one.
I think for me, it's hard to say quantity. I mean, I know people say quality over quantity all the time. I think that, you know, if I had, I mean, my book, I feel like I only have 8 pieces in my book, and I only have 8 pieces in my book at all times. So even though I've made way more stuff than that, when I make something that I think is better than one of those 8 pieces, I take one of the other pieces out. Because I just want to put my best foot forward. And I think as long as you're putting your best foot forward, maybe you have 3 pieces in your book, and maybe they're all amazing. Maybe you have 20 pieces in your book and none of them are good. You just really want to have the things that showcase a breadth of knowledge of things you can do that you're capable of. But I don't necessarily think there's a magic number. I think that it's about showing your best face to whoever's looking at your book. And as far as things that I look for in a book, this is gonna sound so basic, but just like top left. Like I'm like, where's the best thing? Like, it's always in the top left. I think like the thing that you're most proud of, that all the creatives that I know, at least at the agencies I've worked at before, have always said that they do that, and we realized it was like this secret club thing of something that we all did. And I'm like, I put my favorite things at the beginning, because if someone never scrolls past the fold, I want them to see like the 2 things that I think are the best. But when you're really looking at books, if you're hiring, I think that something that I look for is just a wide range of things that you can do, that it's not all the same thing over and over and over again. And I think that this might be a little controversial, but something else that I always look at is how many people are on the credits for this. Like, did you really do this? Are there 5 other writers on this? And if so, what did you write? Did you come up with the idea? Did you write the line? You know, sometimes you're looking at a project that won an award and there's 7 art directors on it, and you're like, well, I can't interview all 7 of these people. I mean, like, how am I gonna know, like, what art director actually came up with the concept, or what art director did the comp? Maybe you're hiring the art director that came up with the idea, but they don't know how to use Photoshop, and that's not good either. So I think that that's something I always look for. I think at least have a couple things in your book that are either small teams or personal projects that you did on your own. So I can look at it and say, like, okay, this is maybe a journal entry from a copywriter, but at least I know that they wrote it, and I can get an insight into who they are by reading it.
I think for me, like, in terms of the amount of pieces in your book, I think 6 is a good amount. I'm not saying that you cannot do 5 or 7. I think 3 is like too little for personally. When I'm looking, I'm like, so does this person like couldn't do more? They haven't had time to like put a like. So for me, there's like 6 is the sweet spot when you're like starting, like, or you're an intern, or you know. That said, it's not that you have 10 great things or like a little less. It's not gonna like, oh, you're never gonna get a job if it's not 6 or 7 or 4. I think a lot of the times I see some like junior portfolios where they have a lot of work that just shows like experience versus the type of creative thinking that, or the type of creatives that they want to be, or that the type of thinking that reflects kind of like their personality. So it's like, oh, I see this cool, or not cool, like this banner ads for like Pepsi. Oh, but it's Pepsi, you know, like I've worked on this brand that everybody knows and that's big, but for me it doesn't mean anything. I prefer that's like a brand that I, you know, haven't heard before, if the idea is good and the inside is interesting and the craft is there. Like, so for me, it's like, don't focus on the stuff that's produced. Like, I only produce, because in the beginning, I had like, if I was gonna put together a portfolio that was only with pieces that I had produced, it was gonna be like a really, you know, not very exciting portfolio. So I think it's like, put stuff that reflects the type of creative that you are, or that you want to be. If it's not real stuff, that's fine, but make it like look real in a way that's like, it makes sense. It's not like, oh, what if we would do this crazy thing that would never really happen in the real world, or that's not possible. Like, you know, don't come up with like a crazy technology that I'm like, but how? But what is this? Like, so basically, have some ideas that, you know, show the stuff you like to do, what kind of creative you are, and I don't think that the brand necessarily matters, or if it's real. And I think it goes back to the craft a little bit, and the types of mediums actually too. Like, not just having like a bunch of like print ads. It's good if you're like a writer and you want to have a campaign of print ads to show like lines. I think, you know, it's good, but I don't think we can anymore just hire someone based on like a portfolio that's just full of like print, or full of just, you know, Facebook posts. Like, I think like a diversity of a diverse sort of like mediums, types of campaigns, different like thinking will show us more of like who you are.
Yes, and you know, I completely agree from a recruiter's perspective with both of you. Emily, you mentioned the upper left. One of the things you guys can think about, if you've got 20 pieces in your book, you have to realize that me as a recruiter will be going to creative directors probably who have no time on their plates to look at a book because we got to make this hire. Look at these 7 books because we have to make a hire on Monday and it's Friday. So going through 20 pieces is not a practical thing at all for the people who are on the receiving end. And so you need to make absolutely sure that we see your best work. So do self-edit and make sure that our eyes are going to what you want us to go to. Ideally, we'll start with the first 2 pieces on the upper left and we're going to keep going. you may have pieces in your book where you feel like, okay, this isn't that good, but I don't have enough pieces in my book. Take a real hard look at yourself and say, okay, maybe I should just leave it out because the other 3 are so good. Because what tends to happen is that if we're looking at 3 pieces, I'm going to use a print campaign as an example because it's just kind of the easiest to illustrate. If we're looking at 3 pieces of print, but they're really the same piece, not all of them are as good as the first one or the middle one. One of them is the best, and if the other 2 are really the same thing, it's better just to have the one piece so we see how great your idea is. And you can apply that to all mediums. I just wanted to use that as an example. So just think about who's looking at your book. You're not there to talk anybody through it, so you want to just be really careful about how you're presenting yourself. So this one, I think, we can all relate to. What is the biggest mistake you made as a beginner, and why was it good or bad?
I've already told you my mistake. Oh, well, here's a terrible mistake I made. The good thing that I did was I stayed up all night at, like, the first great agency I worked at. I worked at Kirschbaum & Bond back in the day when it was, like, I was just one of the best cultures, advertising cultures out there. But I was, of course, being new and young, they put me on something really hard. And I watched the sun come up by myself, making boards. Like, it was just terrible. So I went home, and I had to go to the meeting. I went home with the boards, and I fell asleep. Huge mistake. There's no moral to this story, really. But I did keep the job, however. They threatened to throw me out of the car once I finally woke up, and I told them, stop the car, I'll get out right now, and they backed down. Anyway, I'm still here and working, so.
Thank you. Bianca, do you want to just say?
Sure.
I'm going to ask you the last question. Yeah. Okay. Bianca.
I think for me, it was like moving to the US, was about 10 years ago. I got, because I'm from Brazil, and in Brazil, we really work on being an art director, on the design of things. And when you present things to the client, it's not just throwing sort of an image that kind of tells what the idea is about. You really almost show the final thing. If the client likes it, it's almost like it could just go out the door. It's kind of that much time that we spent on that part of things, on that side of the process. I got here and people kind of saw that I could design, that I was able to design even an app or a website, or even just Photoshop things, and things would look good. And I think for a long time I became sort of that third wheel who would do that for a lot of people, and even for my assignments would become more even focused on that. And that, I think I took too long to basically go to my ECD and say okay, I'm okay doing this, but I think I can do more. And I think you're wasting, an opportunity of putting me on other assignments and giving me a chance to do more than just design. Not that design is not a big thing, but for me as an art director and for my career goals, it wasn't gonna get me to where I wanted to go. So I wasn't complaining, and I wasn't oh, I just designed, I can't, blah, blah, blah. I was just I'm happy to do this, and, I think, and I'll keep doing it, but I want to do more, and, these are my objectives, how do I get there? What could I work on, that will, show a little more of my conceptual thinking side, or that will get me to produce things that I'm gonna be proud of being a part of from the beginning, and not just kind of being something that is, complements some other team's idea. And that happened right as I asked, and I was why didn't I do that before? I should have done that a year ago. And now it's fine. It's not that oh, I wasted so much time and things are horrible. No, it's fine. I'm just saying that now, if you feel they're not using you at your full capacity, or they're not, you're not doing the things that are in line with your career objectives, go talk about it. Don't complain, and don't sound like you're unhappy. Or I guess it's fine if you're a little unhappy, but try to put it in a way that, you don't sound like just some negative person that's don't sound like her. I think that's like what I learned. One of my mistakes was just waiting too long.
Mine is really not that insightful. So when I was, I started interning at Crispin a week out of school. So I was just sort of fresh out of college, moved to Miami, and like I said, we were the only 2 interns, and there were like 4 creatives there, and we were working all the time. I was doing 1 all-nighter, 2 all-nighters a week for the whole internship. It was crazy. And there wasn't that many creatives there, so there weren't that many people that were there really late. And I would stay all night, and then I would go out at like 9 a.m. and go get a bacon, egg, and cheese, and then come back. And about 6 weeks into my internship coordinator sat me down and said, you know, you're doing really well, but I'm a little worried. I mean, a lot of people move to Miami, they get sucked into this party culture. I've noticed you coming in the same clothes, you know, the next day. And I'm just concerned, you know, maybe you need to take a step back, like don't go to South Beach so much. I was like, I literally haven't been out one night since I've been living here. I just work overnight, and then I don't go home. I just like go get breakfast. But it looks, from the outside, I guess it does look like I'm getting a bacon, egg, and cheese and just like cruising into work. So my lesson is always bring a change of clothes, have it at your desk. If you have to work all night, that's great. Make sure someone sees you working all night, or change your clothes.
I love that. And this is the last question. Emily from Ogilvy, I'm going to ask you to address everyone. What's the best way to negotiate a fair wage out of college? And do you think that they should say yes to the job that comes along for them? Or how do you distinguish when to wait or accept opportunities? And does it matter in terms of a big shop or a small shop in terms of that wage negotiation too?
The first thing you need to do is really do your research, okay? Every shop is different. Every organization or holding company is different, okay? I interviewed a young woman this morning, and she had a job that she was waiting. It was a choice between a job in another state for $30,000 a year, or taking my internship program that paid differently and better, quite frankly, okay? I said to her, why is it that you want to take this job? So a lot of you coming right out of school, your idea is, I gotta get a job, I gotta get a job, I gotta get a job. And, oh, okay, you know, other people know that. And so they'll offer you a certain amount of money, and you will be so happy to say that you have accepted a job. You will put on your social media, I have accepted a job, I have a job right out of college, I have a job right out of portfolio school, but you ain't telling them that it's for $25,000 a year, and you're living with 12 people in New York, okay? So I say, you have to do your research. Don't jump at everything. Sometimes internships are the way to go. That's how they get you in. It's cheaper for a company. We don't have to pay for certain things, but we do give you really great experience and mentorship. Every company pays differently. In order of how do you negotiate, that's up to you. If you do your research, then you'll know what they're paying for a particular job, okay? I don't like, if I say, I really don't want to say what Ogilvy pays, and I don't want to say us against anybody else, so I'm going to tell you, it's out there. The information is out there. Y'all on Fishbowl? Because Fishbowl's got a lot of info. I mean, really, it's crazy. But do your research, and then don't just accept a job right out of school for little or nothing. Do your research. That's the best advice I can give you.
That's great advice. Yes. Thank you, everybody. It's been such a pleasure getting to know you guys. You guys really gave some great answers, some great advice. And
So I just want to give it up for the panel one more time, please. And I'd also like to say, so the One Club, we produce the One Show ADC Awards, but we're much more than that. We're a nonprofit. Everything we make from those shows is then funneled back into education, diversity, and gender equality programs. So I just want to say thank you so much for having such a badass panel of women up here. Round of applause, please. Usually we get a bunch of old white men, so this is a nice reprieve. We're going to have about 10 minutes for a Q&A. Does anyone have a question? I'll run over with the mic. Right back here, yeah? I'll run over.
Hi. When people write to you, when they write an email to you, what are the mistakes that they make in that basic email?
Thank you.
I'm so sorry. Oh my God, that made me laugh because I get irritated real fast, okay? So here's the thing. I would believe that everybody up here gets so many emails, all right? And I know for me, I'll speak for me, you have to be patient. I do try to answer, okay? And sometimes you get so squashed down, and then if you send me an email and say, I don't know if you got my email before, I'm writing you again, I'm gonna take offense, okay? Don't say to me, have you, like, there's just some way to respond. Like, I know that you're very busy. I hope that would you please look at my book or whatever. Don't assume that we don't like you, but don't write, I haven't heard from you. I've gotten that a few times. I haven't heard from you, and I was wondering if, and I'm like, yo, you ain't gonna hear from me. Is that wrong? But no, I'm very good. I will answer, because I understand the angst that you're writing with, but just be quick, be succinct, put your portfolio on it, your contact information, and leave it at that. And for me, if you're writing to me, don't be afraid to follow up. I don't care how many times, okay?
Fantastic. Thank you, Emily, the best. Any other questions? Yep, I'm gonna come, sorry guys, pardon.
When you receive a resume, do you prefer a creative resume or listed this is everything that I did, standard marketing resume, or I don't know.
Who's that for?
Any of you?
But you're,
Or more like a standard template.
for a
Oh,
creative
sorry.
job? Yeah,
I'm all business, so if it's designed, it can't get in the way of the information. And I will tell you that probably the first thing that I look at on anyone's online portfolio is the resume. Like, it just happens to be what I want to know about you before I want to know about your work. So I want to get the information straight. So don't over design. That's my recommendation.
And can I add to that? Just kind of attaching an actual resume, like a PDF of your skills and where you've been and stuff. For me, I think that's kind of outdated almost for the creative department. I'm I don't read that. And when I know a lot of portfolio reviews, I don't know if you're taught to bring the printout of your resume personally, and you could be no, I like resumes, but for me it's more the actual portfolio and the bio, when you look at the bio and see what you've done and stuff, this sort of thing. But I wouldn't flower too much the part of great team player and be all whimsical and stuff that you're yeah, don't do that,
No cliches. Do we have any other? Yeah, I'll come right around.
Hello, my name is Corey. When you're told that you have to be twice or 3 times as good, how do you find that balance between work life and personal life?
Such a good
Let's ask the person that came to work in the same clothes for a week.
It's so intense. I mean, I was actually talking to a couple of girls about this the other day. I mean, it's so much about work smarter, not harder, I think. I mean, it's so easy to say and so hard to do, but I find that it's just so much of it is about time management. I come into work, I'm okay, if I know I need to step it up, I really just want to try to use every single minute of my day and do the most that I can do. But it really, especially when you're starting out, it is so much work. I mean, it really is a lot of late nights and a lot of hard work. I mean, there's almost no way around it. And I think that it's so encouraging to me when I see young people who want to put in that work and who are told, you need to work harder, and just they do it. I think that I'm still working really hard a lot, So it's good to see other people that are just starting out do that, because you're like, we're in this together, like we're gonna make it, it's gonna be okay. And I think that it's also about finding like a community of people who understand what you do for a living, and that just because you have to work really hard doesn't mean you don't care about them or that they're not important. I think that for me, that's been so crucial. And that can be really hard to find. I mean, I lived in Boulder for the past forever. I think here it might be a little bit better, but it can be hard to find that. So I think it's important to find like those people that understand what you do and why it's important to you, and to just like be very diligent and smart about how you work.
Thank you. We have time for one more question. I'm going to come right over there, front row.
Thank you. I won't stand because y'all can see me. But my name is Vanessa, and my question is, when you're beginning, you're around all these new people, and everyone has kind of like their people when you're entering that. What's y'all's, like when you meet an intern or someone new for the very first time and you see that they're being like super eager and like kind of obnoxious, how do y'all like see that? And then how did you find your center? Like, how did you know you were comfortable once you got there?
Southern Charm.
You want to answer it?
So what I would do, I can only speak for me, what I do is I make sure that everyone would know you, okay? They'll usually know you before you really officially start, so that eases some of that. So you get to know the entire group, and they're very welcoming. So technically I have a mentor and I have a buddy, okay? The buddy is usually the person that is supposed to be, that's gonna let you into like that young creative portal. And then the mentor is the person that's going to help you with the higher, with the learning stuff. So that's how I would do. You would not be obnoxious, okay? We would not allow it, dear.